Alvin, great to see you in the real.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a couple years, so
Yeah,
nice to be back again.
so over those years, what's happening in China and VR has gotten more and more opaque
Sort of,
to
yeah.
us over here,
Uh-huh.
right? To the nobody in the XR press
Yeah.
is writing about China,
Yes, yes.
but I think it's a bigger market than the United States. Last time I checked, you had 4 times as many people there.
It's although last year was the first year the population in China actually reduced in like the last 50 years.
Right, but
So.
you guys did that to yourselves. So, but getting back to the topic, tell me what your view is post-pandemic of the market in China. How is it developing? Who are the dominant players aside from HTC?
Yeah, well, I think the last few years, a couple years, has been really kind of important in terms of changing the path for XR in China, and I think even more so now towards the B2B side of it. Although the last, I think, 6 months after the Pico acquisition, there's been some more transition now to regrow the consumer side. And they're kind of following the footsteps of Facebook and trying to go very heavy consumer and subsidizing hardware. So
You mean subsidizing software for their hardware?
something like that. So I think they're following the same I guess playbook.
Yeah.
But I think that the market the last month or so actually has taken a little bit of a nosedive because of all of the lockdowns.
Right.
So people couldn't ship anything out to anything. Right? All the logistics were down and all of the warehouses were closed. So, but I think the next month or so, things should be starting to open back up again. So I think second half we're going to have a good recovery. But the second quarter has been a bad quarter for I guess the industry in general.
What is bigger in China for HTC, enterprise or consumer?
Enterprise for sure. Yeah, we're probably 80% B2B. So and it's been that way for the last 3+ years.
So are consumers buying headsets in China, just other ones?
Yeah. I mean, I think some of the lower end products are doing decently in the consumer space, but they're just I think there just aren't as much content there. So I think content has consistently been the barrier. The local developers, most of them are still doing B2B software because that's where the
money today.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I think with ByteDance, they're investing more in that space and they're trying to push that market. So I think it will definitely increase the next couple of years. So. Yeah.
So does HTC have plans for the consumer market, or is it like sort of the U.S. where you're just fishing where the fish are right now?
No. I mean, I think we've always had a foot in the consumer space, particularly in China, because that's kind of our home market. And now with the whole Viber story, I don't know if you kind of heard what we've been talking about in MWC. We announced this concept of a kind of a metaverse world or a platform that allows anybody to join. It's a free open space, and a lot of it is WebXR based. So WebXR, the beauty of it is it
So
works
any
on
browser,
any device. We have full avatar systems that lets people customize. Anybody can access it. We even now are coming out very soon with development tools, so anybody can have a world that they can then create and invite their friends to.
So is it sort of an open sandbox social space like VR chat or Altspace?
Yeah,
or
exactly. But even easier because it's just instant click and you're there, and you can send that world to anybody, and they just need a link and they're there. So you can just sign on as a guest, or you can link it to your MetaMask. ID, or so it then links to transaction capability. So I remember the other day you were asking about some Web3 transactional capability. So we actually link directly to your MetaMask wallet. So if you had products that you were trying to sell in there, it's like an instant click and buy. And we put that functionality in the system as well.
So I know you're interested in an open metaverse and WebXR based XR applications. Which is sort of very Web3. Is that the way we're going to get to an open metaverse, is through protocols rather than a change in practice by the consolidators?
Well, I mean, I don't think it has to be Web3. right? Because I think the current Web3 story is really about decentralization and then a lot of it about crypto. I think there's a very non-crypto aspect of it that can make it open as well. I mean, just like what Rick Tello mentioned today in terms of the openness and the Ori as well. So I think that's where things are going to head to.
Yeah.
Just like
So the just question is the openness a result of a blockchain-based approach, which is Web3, or is it just based on changing the way we currently behave on the internet?
Yeah, I think it's about changing the way, and it's about changing creating more standardization, and allowing people to gather in have a common understanding in terms of how to create that portability and interoperability. Just like the internet, I mean, there's a lot of standard protocols that people are using, and even though none of them are really fully decentralized because there's still like a DNS server somewhere, and but the having a common protocol is, I think, the key. And in China, it will be very centralized because it's the government's going to centralize it, but it's still
do you think
interoperable.
the Chinese metaverse would ever be connected with a Western metaverse?
Absolutely. I think it's a matter of time, and just like right now, the Chinese internet is mostly open to the rest of the world, but there's going to be a portion of it that's closed down. Right? And so it's really analogous to the same growth model. Is that they will take some time to understand kind of how this impacts it, and they will kind of be a little more conservative in the beginning. But over time, they will allow their citizens to be able to go to outside metaverse properties or worlds. Right? So I don't know if you saw one of my slides from a few months ago in terms of there's going to be 3 phases of development of the metaverse, going from kind of the current multiple walled gardens that nobody talks to each other to a regional walled garden where you might have a European region, a China region, an Asian region or whatever, or a US region. And then at the end, there'll be little, very small regional kind of universes, and then one big open interoperable universe. Right? So it's going to happen over probably 10-year period, so it's not going to be right away, but it will definitely happen.
What do you think the impact will be of Apple finally entering the market after sort of this rumor hanging over the industry for the last 5 years?
Well, it's still a rumor. I mean, because the announcement hasn't happened yet, so we'll see. But it sounds like it's getting more real, and I think it's a welcome thing because Apple just has so much influence in the mindset of people. It'll make it much more acceptable, right?
They can sell many more units.
Yeah, they're going to sell more.
Can ever sell
For sure. They will sell more units. They will get consumer mindset, and they will educate the world. And it's when the tide rises, everybody rises, right? So I think it's a good thing when that happens. I don't know if it's actually going to happen on the timelines that some of the rumors are saying, but when it does, I think it's a good thing.
This year or next year.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah, but I mean,
developers need to get something. I mean, they can't anything, an emulator, anything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but they've been doing the camera-based stuff for a while, so I think that's kind of their way to soft sell the process. But when it sounds like the product's going to be a multi-$1,000 product, so it's not
It's sort of a developer version anyway.
Yeah, so it's not really affordable for most folks or tech enthusiasts. But but I think
I'll be in line right behind Scoble.
Well, he's been talking about it for 5-6 years.
I teased him when I saw him. You're finally right.
I don't know yet. Let's wait a few weeks. Yeah.
Well, he said a broken clock is right twice a day, so his minute is coming up.
Yes. But yeah, I think it's a positive. So if and when it happens.
So speaking of enterprise, in the United States, enterprise. Was stalled by the pandemic. I mean, there's some see what I see technology that did well, but in general, a lot of the big implementations take place for frontline workers who have to be physically present. And it seems to have kind of stalled out enterprise growth in the U.S. You must have had a similar effect in China, yes?
Not really. I mean, I think enterprise, we're seeing consistent growth. In fact, in China, they just came out.
Because in the U.S., the HoloLens business group is supposedly struggling. They've lost some people.
Yeah.
And I guess there's some issues around Alex's leadership potentially,
Yeah.
and then Peggy left, and that was Peggy Johnson, who's now at Magic Leap. That
Yeah.
was a bigger deal,
Uh-huh.
I think, for them because she was working with their sales and business development, and that seems to be an area of emerging concern because the uptake of the HoloLens has just not been a barn burner.
Yeah, but I mean, it's still a not mature product. So the fact that they're already selling that type of units at that price point, it's not I'm sure in their perspective it's not a great success, but it's a good proof of concept. So I think there might be some personnel issues over there. So I
Yeah,
can't
well,
really
I mean, I
comment.
don't know either. So I
Yeah.
just, but as a writer, you just get used to this sort of where there's smoke, there's fire, and it's not just one story. There's 4 or 5. So that's when you start to think.
For us though, I think enterprise actually hasn't really stalled. We've been having consistent growth, consistent interest, and in fact, in China they just had the 14th 5-year plan, and XR was mentioned specifically in that plan as something that the government wants to push as an initiative to digitize more of the
Well,
economy.
great topic they were pushing in 2016. And do you sense that push has continued unabated, or it's kind of going up and down a little bit?
It kind of came down a little bit, I think, maybe in the last couple of years, but now it's actually starting to go back up again. I feel like and there's actually now multiple government groups looking to create, standardization in the country to make this a potential strategic advantage in terms of productivity and efficiency and education and kind of helping it have a advantage in the marketplace, in the global marketplace. So I think it's something that is becoming increasingly important.
Is training still the killer app, do you think, or are there other uses that...
For B2B side, training is probably more than half of our unit sales, so it's consistently important.
Yeah.
And training and education, but B2B training has been it's been a consistent use case.
I think that's been the winner here in the United States also.
But I think collaboration is going to become more important, and collaboration actually has much larger volumes because training is usually one trainer will train 100 people, whereas collaboration everybody needs it. As the devices get a little bit smaller, I think with the Vive Flow type of devices, that changes people's mindset. They're much more willing to use it now, and the ease of use is there. I think after we make some more optimization of compatibility, usability of that product, it's going to hit a different level. And I know a few other companies are coming out with kind of the pancake thin lens products that will really help this market, I think, in general.
Alvin, great to see you. Thanks for sitting down with us.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Charlie.
We're here with our friend Ann McKinnon. It's great to see you in the real, Ann.
It's awesome to be here. Super exciting. There's a lot of inspiration. We're bringing a lot of music industry for the first time to a tech conference, including Betty Fink, Charlie's daughter, which has been great to have her on a panel. I'm very lucky. Charlie's invited me to speak about Ristband, which is my startup. I'm the co-founder and CEO. And Ristband is an experience platform where creators can hone their craft, meet their audiences, and monetize Web3 and the ownership economy.
So, well, there's a lot to unpack there. So let's just start out with how it works, right? How is this, the artists appear to us virtually?
Yeah, so I guess first to visualize it, if anyone's played Grand Theft Auto or if they've been to their favorite citywide festival, you can think about Grand Theft Auto minus all the drugs, violence, and gangs. Yeah, and then loads of creators taking place. And we look at creators not just as music artists. I think actually a virtual concert is one of the most challenging things to put into a metaverse platform because the same rituals and the same format doesn't work. There are two completely different mediums, the live and the virtual, and they require two different approaches. We're also looking at NFT artists and creators or visual interactive artists. So you have, in game engine you can do anything. So if you touch a wall in an audio visual and it has that interactivity, we're also looking at new ways where you can connect all this incredible content that's already happening in the real world and create a window into the metaverse. So for example, if you have one of the venues that I love downtown LA is called The Shrine. And if you have a window of one of the walls projecting a window from the metaverse, you can have this interaction between live attendees and the virtual attendees at the same time. And Charlie, you were at South by Southwest. Ted, were you at South by?
Not this year. I've
Not
been
this
many
year.
years in the past. This year was still pandemic for me.
Yeah. So to give an example of what that looked like, we had a physical venue in Austin, and then we had a NFT gallery and experience within Wristband. And we were thinking, how can we create something fun for the audience who is live? Of course, they're going to a real event, but then also create an extension for people who cannot be there. So the live experience, they went to a theater, they had VR headsets on. It was just a demo, so it was about 15 minutes total. I'd go in, experience this immersive concert where it alternate the audience between reality and virtual reality and then augmented overlays. But then we thought, okay, well that could be really tough or like maybe a bit boring to go and watch that happen in the virtual world. So we actually took an unreleased track of the artist. We hid it in the virtual world. We use pixel streaming, which means it's easy to access. So you can go onto a URL link, click on that, and then all of a sudden you arrive in Wristband in your avatar. You have a mission. You have 10 minutes to find this hidden track. If you find it and share it on social media, the band manager will find it because of the hashtag, and they'll give you a code to download that track on Bandcamp. And because it's virtual, it's only released in that space, you have something that no one else has in the real world, and it's a completely different experience. So I think this is a really exciting way to look at, the metaverse as an extension of the real life rather than as a replacement for it.
So for those that are listening and trying to grasp when you talk about the nomenclature of wristband, you're using that as sort of a moniker to define the kind of concert experience where you put on a physical wristband. In the virtual world, you're using that as a metaphor, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's something that all concert goers are familiar with.
Right.
You
You
have
understand what the
the
wristband is,
ritual.
and the different colors of a wristband can
Yeah.
get you to different places
Exactly.
in the venue.
Exactly.
So, South by Southwest, let me describe for people who are listening and didn't have the privilege of being at South by Southwest what the experience was. The band is called Miro Shot, and they did this very special event at South by Southwest, which has never been done. We sat in, I don't know, a 50-person theater.
100%.
100-person theater. And Anne and her minions started coming out and passing out the old
Our
Samsung
heads, like, our arms were
gear-
loaded.
the gear headsets
Yeah.
with some
Sundance
old
is years past.
with some old
Yeah.
$5 smartphone in it. Right, so they had to charge all these smartphones, put them in Goes, or not Goes, the
Yeah.
gear,
Gear.
put them
Yeah.
in the gear, and then take them out to everybody in the audience one at a time. But wait, it gets better because the music and the events or the effects in the headset are synced up.
Yeah.
And sometimes you are using the pass-through camera to see reality, and sometimes you're seeing a fully included VR experience, and sometimes you don't know whether it's
We
the
see
real
people
experience.
taking their glasses on and off.
Yeah, well, that's what I did. I was taking it on and off because am I
Yeah.
seeing reality pass
Yeah.
through this headset,
Yeah.
or have they made me believe that what's on the stage is different than physical reality?
So
Exactly.
you were using very primitive technology from a couple of years ago, and today with what Meta has talked about publicly with their Cambria idea with super high-res color cameras and a full all-in-one mixed reality device that isn't pass-through like glasses, it's still a headset, but the idea of taking what you did
Yeah.
with devices that are really hard to work with and making something really kind of robust and that miraculous moment where am I watching this? Am I watching it in the metaverse, in reality, some hybrid between? It's kind of fascinating.
So if MiroShot was ever able to expand that into a 90-minute show, they should go in residence in some Broadway theater and charge people $1,000 for a ticket, because I don't know, and here's the problem for MiroShot, of course, is that it's expensive to do that, right? I mean, of course, you've got the CEO of Ristband and a bunch of other people. You can't take them on tour and do that all over the country. So that's why a residency would make more sense. And I do hope that MiroShot, I mean, that would be a gargantuan undertaking, right? Because so far it's kind of made by volunteers and kind of bespoke, patched together as a collective, but doing something that's an hour and a half would be substantial storytelling work, and it would require dedicated artists to work on it for some period of time.
We have the luxury of working with some of the most talented artists who are up and coming, and who are also the most open to experimental events. So for
They had not yet become fully mercenary.
yeah, not mercenary yet. But with you make an interesting point with the headsets because like Samsung gave those to us years ago. We're very lucky, otherwise it is cost prohibitive. But also when you go to a concert, it's blurry, it's foggy, there's dry ice and smoke, so that kind of plays into it. It
Right.
works.
That worked fine.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, they had the room. The theater itself was a lot of red
Yeah,
light.
yeah.
And it was a rock show. I mean, they had
You're not looking for
there was a lot of stuff going on.
Experience, exactly. And I think this is missing from a lot of metaverse platforms that exist right now. You go in, you arrive in world, you have no idea what you're supposed to do, there's no monetization for creators, it's ugly, it's blocky, it's clunky. And this is a lot of the things that we're trying to solve. So the idea that anyone can have a space and monetize their work, reach their audiences, even if no one's ever heard them before.
So let's talk. You mentioned Web3
Yeah.
as an approach to doing this. So to me, Web3 means disintermediating protocols.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you have?
Well, there's a sliding scale of centralized and decentralized. With Ristband, we're a game platform at the end of the day, so we need to have centralized mechanics. It won't work for us to sell our land or to sell different patches because then you're having this variety of experiences that doesn't feel cohesive. It's like Disneyland has a theme that you have an expectation of what you're going to experience. People go, they have that ritual of going to have a great time, even though there are different experiences within there. And Wristband needs to feel the same. You go in, you say, I'm going to Wristband to have a great time, and I'm going to discover all these incredible experiences within it. So that requires a bit of control and centralization. But I think the ownership economy is where we're going to unlock this new era of experiences in Web3 and really allow creators to monetize their work. So for traditional industries, you might have a booking agent who wants a booking fee to present their artist in your platform. But if we're talking to Web3 artists, because they have ownership of their item or their art or their song, they just want to be a part of it, which is great. So you're unlocking this potential of a new creative economy.
Where are you with the development of Wristband as a company? Have you gotten any financing? Where are you in this journey?
Yeah, it's been a wild journey. I met my co-founder in 2017 when I was a journalist, and that's something actually Charlie was really inspired me at the beginning of my career. And I started to work for his label as a tech partnerships and consultant. And then in 2020, when we were invited to South by, the world was canceled. So my co-founder, his album tour was canceled, all the shows were canceled. So we thought, before we ever thought about trying to make a metaverse startup or platform, which is challenging, we thought, how can we use other platforms that already exist to create a compelling show that they can monetize and reach their audience and have these production channels and live events? And it was really fun and really, we tried to do loads of things that most of them didn't work, but we learned a lot along the way. We thought, okay, there's nothing out there for us. We should try and make something. We launched our company in September 2021, Wristband, officially, after about a year of R&D, working with other platforms and doing our own experiments. Epic Games kind of heard about what we were doing. We got a mega grant in January of this year. We launched, we hired our team, really talented group of small group of developers, and we launched from 6 weeks to alpha at South by Southwest to have pixel streaming, multiplayer, built all the infrastructure, built our first world, having 81 NFT artists featured as well as the band featured within our virtual world. Super rare and rareable to the bigger NFT platforms, shared an open call for content. So we had thousands of artists actually submit their work to be featured. There's huge amount of demand.
That is great. So you're going to come back on the podcast in a few months and update us on your progress. Yeah.
Yeah, one after the other. Well, it's thank you really to our community who's playing a role in encouraging us and inspiring us for what's next.
All right. Thank you, Anne.
Thank you, guys.
I'm with my friend Brian from Qualcomm, who has a very interesting role that he plays at Qualcomm in the XR community as one of the voices and thought leaders and one of the driving forces behind your efforts in XR, which are pretty instrumental as it relates to the overall touchpoint. So these are our AWE mini podcasts around This Week in XR, which will go on our weekly podcast broadcast and show up in other media places that Charlie Fink and I are doing. So I'm doing a few while Charlie is off doing presentation. And within just a few minutes, talk about what you announced at Augmented World Expo this week up in Santa Clara, and some of your broader touch points around XR and what you're excited about spaces you're flying the colors with your t-shirt.
Yeah.
Just give me a sense of what's going on.
Sure. Yeah. So thanks, Ted. My name's Brian. My role at Qualcomm is I lead the Spaces team, so both the product and our efforts around building a developer ecosystem. And so we're really excited that this week at AWE we announced the general availability of the Spaces developer kit. So Spaces is all about helping developers build applications for augmented reality glasses. And so we today announced our collaboration with Lenovo and Motorola around a developer kit. So this is the hardware side of it, and then Qualcomm, of course, is enabling the ecosystem through SDKs for Spaces for Unity and for Unreal Engine. And we announced this platform back in November at the previous AWE, and now we're actually bringing it out to everybody. We've been in kind of early access since that time.
So you, like a lot of other people that have shown up at AWE, have a belief that there is a future beyond the smartphone, right? The smartphone has become a ubiquitous device, an always on, always connected, in our pocket, in our hand device. But Qualcomm has a bet on the future, right? And now this future is not the faraway future. It's the fairly close to reality future, right? So maybe talk a little about that and what you've done this week with the announcing of the SDK isn't just for a few select developers, but for anybody that wants to pay, what, a couple $1,000s and you're in, right?
That's right, yeah. So I think, we believe that AR is evolving in a bunch of different ways. Obviously, you see devices that are standalone or all-in-one, devices like the HoloLens or the Magic Leap one, and then we see like smart glasses, which may or may not have displays on them, or audio-based, sort of at different ends of the spectrum. And in the middle, we see this opportunity where glasses can be tethered to smartphones, and you can use all the power that you have on the smartphone to drive the user experience. And that today is wired, but also last week we announced a new reference design that would make that wireless. So we think that the glasses as an accessory to the smartphone and using the innovation that's happening on a yearly basis with a smartphone is really going to help accelerate the pace of innovation in head-worn AR. And so our objective is to drive both the hardware reference designs so that we can create blueprints that OEMs can use to get to market more rapidly, but also to create the developer tools so that we can put spatial computing technology into the hands of every developer we can. And this is both developers for head-worn AR, like people who build for, let's say, Magic Leap or HoloLens. It's smartphone AR developers, so people who are building for AR Core or AR Kit. And it's also mobile developers, so people who are building just for smartphone today who want to add maybe a little bit of AR to their application.
So why don't you give our listeners and our watchers, listening to this on the podcast and watching it on one of the video platforms, a sense of how ubiquitous the Qualcomm chipset is in these AR devices, because you just kind of glossed over it in the process of talking about all of the different development.
Sure.
But I think it's really interesting to know how many devices you are in that are really the core of how people are using wearable AR today in its earliest stages of build and development.
That's right. Yeah. So we've been working in the AR space going back to 2007, so 15 years, and we started in smartphone AR. So you may remember Euphoria, that project started at Qualcomm, and so we've been we began experimenting with head-worn AR around 2013, 2012, 13, and really I think the hardware wasn't there yet to be able to enable the kinds of experiences that we knew we wanted. I mean, we were barely getting there on the smartphone at the time, let alone the head-worn form factor. And so I think we're now at a point where we're seeing a spectrum of devices. We see what we call assisted reality devices, like let's say Vuzix or Epson or RealWear. These are mono chromatic or mono displays.
Use cases and
That's right.
use cases.
That's right, yeah, and then we see, so that's on one end of the spectrum, and then we also see devices like, the HoloLens or the Magic Leap 1 and 2, and, Qualcomm plays a big role in the ecosystem in terms of enabling that hardware. We're
90% of the devices are using.
So we're on over 50 devices, and so that's across VR and AR, obviously.
You power the Quest 2.
We do. We power the Quest 2, for example. Also, the HoloLens 2 is another device.
You touch everybody. You touch Microsoft. You touch Meta.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, the Snap spectacles are also using Qualcomm. So Google Glass also.
The market.
Yeah. So it's exciting times because there's just a lot of innovation happening in the hardware space, and the industry is now, I think, starting to converge around the right technologies and also advancements in AI and computer vision and just other spaces are converging to where I think we're going to be able to start to get the kinds of form factors we want to see, in terms of size and just ergonomics, display quality, just processing capability, field of view on the displays. All these kinds of things are coming together so that we think that the next year to 2 years is going to be really exciting in terms of the kinds of experiences we'll see that developers will be able to create on this hardware.
Well, and as we look to the future, I mean, you have the Lenovo partnership now, the Motorola partnership now, which is a tethered connected
Yes.
device. But the thing that you gave me a little bit of an early warning on is that the wireless stuff is coming.
Right.
And just a few weeks ago, you made the public announcement. You showed an even sexier, lighter, more nimble device that no longer has to have a physical connection to the phone as its sort of source of power, source of connectivity.
Right.
How long is that in the development curve? Have you worn one yet? Is it a working device? Is it a theoretical build device? Where is it?
Yeah. So I've worn them, and I've actually seen experiences running on them. We're not ready to talk about spaces on them yet, but I can say that's coming. But so the key unlock here is to remove the cable. I think that the cable is kind of ever present, maybe tugging at you a little bit, maybe breaks the immersion. Yeah, that's right. And then also, I mean, I've seen things like where just the hardware gets the cable gets twined up, it gets turned up, so you have to unwind it and that sort of thing if it's being used quite frequently. So obviously we want to remove the cable, and so what's really interesting is Qualcomm's DNA is in wireless technology. And if you go back to Qualcomm's history, we started as a wireless company, and so we have massive investments in Wi-Fi technology and cellular technology. We have really the world's leading RF experts, and so we've been able to optimize that AirLink to enable the glasses and the smartphone to work in tandem, where the applications actually run on the smartphone. And some of the perception technology, the tracking technology, run on the glasses. And so we have to, take that perception technology and move it to the smartphone, do the rendering.
Low latency way that
Exactly.
feels completely natural.
That's right, yeah. So from the time that the user's head or hands move to the time that a frame gets rendered, to encoding and then sent back wirelessly to the device, that whole round trip latency needs to be super low in order to not have a poor experience. And so we think we've achieved an experience that's indiscernible from cable. You can't tell that it doesn't have a cable in terms of the latency. So and so that's something that I think Qualcomm's uniquely positioned to do, is enable that wireless. And then also we're enabling wireless in the smartphones as well. So I think we can help make those glasses and the smartphone work better together.
Yeah, you build a lot of this core technology that
right.
allows it to happen, so you might as well start to sort of seed it out into the world.
That's right.
Last couple questions before we wrap up this speed round. What's your prediction on when we get to real consumer traction around mixed reality, wearable mixed reality, and augmented reality? What's your sort of sense, or Qualcomm's sense, of how long will it take sitting here in the summer of 2022 until a lot of people have these that are using them on a daily basis?
Yeah, I think one thing on kind of terminology, so when we talk about mixed reality, we're talking about a VR device with pass-through cameras, where you can pass the real world through, and you do augmented reality experience using a VR headset
from Meta that's coming, and some of the other things.
Exactly, yeah. So the ability to do AR experience it's video pass-through, similar to smartphone AR, where it's passed through to the display on the smartphone. So I'm really excited about that, because that's going to allow people to begin experimenting with mixed reality or augmented reality in a VR form factor.
But when you talk augmented, you consider that a pass-through device. You consider that something that you're still actually physically seeing in the real world.
That's an optical see-through device. So like the Lenovo A3, we would consider that an augmented reality glass. Whereas if something was using like a Vario device running video pass-through, that's more of a mixed reality. That's a mixed reality device. Yeah. So I think we'll see mixed reality.
Treats it differently, because I think Magic Leap refers to mixed reality as a So it's not a defined space.
It's not. No, it's not, and that creates a little bit of confusion. But yeah, I think we see obviously, the optical see-through like the A3 or Nreal Lite, you've seen these devices. They're also tethered to the smartphone. Those are available today, so you can go buy them today, and they're just not shipping in massive volumes, right? They're being used for enterprise use cases, like in the case of the A3, or they're being used in Nreal's cases, for consumer, but the install base is not massive today. In terms of timing, I think 2023 is going to be a really important year for both mixed reality, because I think there's a lot of VR headsets that are in the pipeline that want to support this type of a use case, and so I think that the idea of being able to build AR applications on a VR headset is going to help content innovation for the optical see-through devices. And so I think there's going to be ecosystem building that's going to happen in 2023 around that. And then in terms of the optical see-through, like the evolution of what we're doing with the wireless viewer, I think that starts in 2023 as well, and then starts to ramp in 2024. So I think.
So you think by 2025 we'll have a more robust ecosystem of these devices that are not just touching enterprise and
I think 2024 is when we'll start to see that. Yeah,
just a couple years.
Yeah.
We'll see if you're right.
So it's what we're built to do. Qualcomm's built to enable the ecosystem. We're there. That's why we build these reference designs to kind of get the market moving and accelerate the pace of innovation. And so it's about the devices and hardware. But we know that if we don't have content, that's going to be a struggle to get the flywheel moving with consumers. So that's part of what we're doing now in 2022 with Snapdragon Spaces.
So why don't we wrap up with that? That'll be our final question. Give the listeners here a sense of what you're doing to build up the ecosystem using Spaces as the tool to do that.
For sure, yeah. So with Spaces, so encourage everyone to go take a look at spaces.qualcomm.com. You can register, download the SDKs for Unity or Unreal Engine there. We also have a program called Pathfinder that we launched. We just announced the first 23 projects that we funded. So we had applications open in November. We had hundreds of applications that came in. We funded the first cohort of 23 projects. And so please, your listeners, go and take a look at that Pathfinder program. Maybe apply for that. That provides access to resources like hardware dev kits and some project funding and that sort of thing. And then Qualcomm also announced what we call the Snapdragon Metaverse Fund, which that has two pieces. One piece is venture investment, where we're led by Qualcomm's ventures team, along with the XR business unit. We're out there looking for companies to invest in the XR space, and then also content investment. So how do we bring dollars into larger projects to bring more content to us? So those are two things that we've announced recently that are part of Spaces, and I think it would be great for listeners to go take a look at those. Both of them on our website.
How do people find you and your team?
Yeah. So you can find us. You can reach out to us at spaces.qualcomm.com. You can also find me on Twitter or on LinkedIn. So Brian Vogelsang.
Thanks, Brian.
All right. Thank you. Take care.